in the starting 11 or even in the squad for next week when United play Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned his Insta post. I saw one, I think it was last week, it was in Dubai on the top of a building, and it had like an amazing sort of skyscraper outlook, and he was on a bike doing some exercise saying, "Oh, I'm nearly back." But it's like, so well and good doing that. Do you know what I mean? I could go and post videos of me in the gym and saying, "Oh, I'm nearly back," but I can't play for United. So yeah, it just sort of sums us up at the minute as a squad. We're very, very weak in midfield. Just in terms of numbers, we've got, there's only really Scott McTominay there that's putting any performances week in, week out. So you look at Liverpool and their midfield seems to be pretty solid. Their players up front, and you think, can we win that midfield battle that over the years has been United-Liverpool, been won and lost in that midfield? You think about the battles of, I know we keep going to, oh yeah, it was great back in the day, but you look at the likes of Scholes, Gerrard, them sort of battles in midfield, they won or lost the game. So Paul Pogba, I mean, I'm sort of halfway with Paul Pogba, because in the big games, does he turn up? Not enough for me. He's a good player. He's a world-class footballer on his day, and he's got all the abilities that anyone could ever wish for on the football pitch. But does he really grab that game by the neck and go, right, we're going to win this United-Liverpool game? Probably not. So we'll miss him in that midfield, but it's just, I think the thing is with injuries at the minute, it just shows how weak the squad is, because it's like you get one injury and it's panic stations. It's, who do we need to buy now? Why has it come to that? We get one injury to Martial and it's like, oh, we've got no strikers. And now an injury to Pogba and it's like, we've got no midfielders. So surely you get two injured players and you can't just, your team just falls apart. So yeah, I do worry about that midfield battle against Liverpool now that he's out, especially.
You mentioned leaders there, and you don't see Paul Pogba as being the type of person to grab the ball by the horns and take the game to the opposition. Who is in the United setup going to do that? And when you mention the midfield as well, another story has come out from Jose Mourinho this week. I'm fed up of hearing stories about Jose Mourinho, by the way, but another story has come out where he said he didn't even want to sign Fred. Apparently, Jose Mourinho did not want to sign Fred, but he was concerned that if he didn't, there wouldn't be enough time, or there wouldn't be any other options that the United board would present to him, so he had to sign him.
Yeah,
his hands were tied.
What a load of rubbish. I mean, Jose Mourinho's got a bet manager in his head since he's left United, because he seems to be like as a pundit, whether it's Sky Sports or different television stations around the world. He seems to be putting his 2 pence in every week, and he seems to be getting better and better. So yeah, I don't really read much into that, but Fred hasn't worked out as a signing either. You look at leaders United squad, you're looking through the team. I mean, David De Gea, is he a leader? He's been captain quite a lot this season. He's a very good player, but I don't really see him as a leader. Maybe leading by example, but not really with that armband on. Harry Maguire, you've got to say, has all the makeup to be a United leader and maybe future captain one day, but we've only just signed him, so you've got to say he needs time to bed in and sort of organise that defence. Actually, when Tuanzebe came in, I know the Newcastle game didn't go well, but I actually see him as a potential future leader, because he was organising players in that defence, even Maguire at times. Like I said, Scott McTominay, he's turned up this season. To be fair to him, I know a lot of people criticised him towards the end of last season, saying he wasn't good enough for United, but do you know what? I'll take him week in, week out, because he always gives his all, and he looks like a solid player. He normally gives 7, 8 out of 10 performances every week, so I think you're looking at him as a possible leader. And then apart from that, there's very few and far between, and I think that sort of sums it up to United. That United team sheet you read out before, you're looking at every one of them players and they're a leader in their own right. You could have passed the armband around to anyone and it wouldn't really matter. But now you're looking, who has the armband? Ashley Young's the club captain. I mean, doesn't that just say it all at the minute?
Just to quickly finish on Jose Mourinho, because I don't want to make this about him, but the argument that gets thrown about now, and you see it all over Twitter, and everybody, whenever they speak on this station, talks about the fact that Jose Mourinho said, it was one of his greatest achievements to get that United team to second place in the 17-18 season. It was such a huge, tremendous achievement from him, and now he's had the last laugh. Do you buy into that? Do you buy into the fact that Jose's got the last laugh because of where United are now?
Not really, no. I mean, he said that statement, didn't he? Coming second was his best ever achievement. And, I mean, looking back at it, it does seem quite a good achievement comparison. But when has a United manager ever been judged for coming second? It's just not acceptable. You can't look at coming second as an achievement, because then we turn into the Arsenal of top 40 trophy. So, no. I mean, Mourinho, as a United manager, you look at it, he won his trophies, he was good for a season or so, but by the end, the feeling around the club, it was awful. I mean, I know he fell out with Pogba, fell out with a number of players, Luke Shaw. The dressing room wasn't playing for him. The atmosphere at the games was just dead. And the feeling just wasn't right. So, Mourinho, he didn't really work out at United. And whether that's a structure problem, whether it's people above him that was the reason why he didn't succeed. But I think for him to keep coming out and saying, oh, coming second was a great achievement and I did this and I didn't do this, I think it's just leave it where it is. Like, you won trophies for United and fair play for that. You got us back to a position where we could have moved on for, but then it all went wrong again. So he did half a job really, and you can't really come out and say you've succeeded for that.
Yeah, and Sir Alex, without wishing to do comparisons again, finished second in his first full season at the club. It took him, 3 or 4 years to win the fans over eventually. Just to finish before we move on, we're a week on from that horrendous display at St James's Park. How are you feeling now? How's your week been?
I've tried to forget about it. I mean, we did this show same time last week and I felt like I got it all off my chest then and got it all out. So I think you've got to move on now. It's been an international break and I never thought I'd say I'd be thankful of an international break, but I think it's come almost at the right time for United. I think you'd hope they're back on the training pitch and putting it in, week out, and coming up with some sort of plan that's going to get this sort of makeshift team or makeshift squad at the minute to go and get a result and if not beat Liverpool, which is going to be a real tough ask. So I'm feeling okay at the minute. Where I'll be this time next week remains to be seen, but we'll take it. And you just hope. I mean, some of the stories coming out, the transfer targets, don't really excite me too much, I must admit. But you hope something's going on the training pitch to try and get something out of this squad.
Well, you just hope so. You mentioned those signings, the fabulous 4 that we're apparently led to believe will be coming into Old Trafford next summer. We're going to be discussing those next.
This is Love Sport. Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
They've called it Archie, Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor.
Okay.
So it's going to be running around the playground soon with all the other little Oscars and Hughs and Hugo. Hugo, darling, come on, your quinoa's getting cold.
I don't mind quinoa when it's cold.
Right, okay, that's what you took from that, is it?
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, what's the baby called again? No, quinoa's not that bad when it's cold, though, is it?
No, it's not. I have just eaten some quinoa as well, so I'm a frothing hypocrite.
Yeah.
Although healthy while I do it.
Some more big news today concerning Bolton Wanderers. Lawrence Bassini's takeover looks to be off, and we're joined now by Roger Allinson, a board member of the Bolton Supporters Trust. Afternoon, Roger.
Hello.
Hello.
What on earth is quinoa?
Yes! You can tell you're from Bolton. I love it.
Weekdays from 6 a.m.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Can you save money on your energy bills? Tony did, with help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting people real savings.
I'm Tony from Northampton. My bills for gas and electricity had gone straight through the roof. I chose a spokesman said, and they saved me £2,800. It was so easy, I used them for my house and contents insurance too.
For help saving money on your energy bills, go to a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
There's Rashford trying to embroider it. He's done it. He has done it. No wonder it's high there when it comes to international interest. A rasper from Rashford. From Mata. Rashford! Well, we're only a quarter of the way through the game. And what a mark Marcus Rashford has made on it.
This is the Manchester United fan show on Love Sport, and that was Marcus Rashford bagging a brace against Liverpool in the aforementioned 17-18 season that we discovered prior to those ads. United finishing second, of course, behind Man City in that season. And that clip is particularly interesting for me, particularly poignant, because that was his first start. That was March the 10th of that season, right? So that was his first start since Boxing Day against Burnley. And I did say we weren't going to discuss Jose Mourinho again, but I kind of feel it's necessary on this occasion because in that game in particular, he put Liverpool and notably Trent Alexander-Arnold to the sword. He was brilliant that day, absolutely brilliant. He'd made a difference in the game against Palace, I think the Monday before that when United were 2-0 down, came back to win 3-2. And then in typical Jose fashion, the next Premier League game, he was back on the bench. The next Premier League game after that against City, back on the bench. Back on the bench for West Brom after that. And I really believe that was potentially such a pivotal game for him to come in against Liverpool, score those 2 goals, brilliant goals as well. The first one in particular, a little Cruyff and smashed it beyond the keeper. But that's kind of been the story for Marcus Rashford at Manchester United. And personally, I believe that Jose Mourinho really stunted his development. And when you look at his stats, and I'm going to quickly read these out now. So he came in under Louis van Gaal, obviously, almost by accident, came in to replace Anthony Martial in that game against FC Midtjylland in the Europa League. He made 11 starts thereafter. Wasn't on the bench once in that 15-16 season. In Jose Mourinho's first campaign at United, 16 starts, 16 games on the bench. Came off the bench. In Jose Mourinho's second season, 17 starts, 18 from the bench. Last season, it was 26 and 7 off the bench. And this season, it's been 8 starts. He's not been given, in my opinion, apart from that first campaign when he came in, a proper run in this Man United team. And only when that happens, we're 8 games in so far, 3 goals, 2 assists in the Premier League. It's not the worst record by any stretch of the imagination. He's not playing to the ability that we know that he can play. But until he has an extended run of games in the team, we're just not going to know about Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Rashford, once boy wonder, wasn't he? I think Mourinho definitely did stunt his growth in a way because you felt like, and we've mentioned that Liverpool game, he was unbelievable in that game. He had pace to burn, his finishing, he couldn't miss at that point in time. But he seemed to play a game, miss 2, play a game, miss 2, play a game. And you're thinking, how's he sort of going to get any form whatsoever over that? But then you're thinking, okay, you've got to see some sort of development. And I'll go as recent as when Solskjaer came in to the end of last season. He sort of seemed to say, from the first day he came in, that Marcus Rashford, he's my number 9. He's the player that's going to play through the middle. He's the Man United striker. Lukaku shifted to the side, shifted to the bench. Why he probably went to Inter Milan in the end because he wasn't playing. And then the start of this season, Marcus Rashford, left wing, game in, game out. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what's changed here? Because end of last season, it was Rashford down the middle, Martial on the left. This season, it's Martial down the middle, Rashford on the left. So you've got to think he's not really. He seems to be given this confidence, and then it's taken away again. I think he is a confidence player. I think some players you look at and think the likes of Harry Kane, who doesn't matter if your manager fancies you or not, he's going to get you goals. He's going to get you goals every season. He'll get 20 plus goals, and they've got it in them to just score, and that's all it means to them. They're just the predators in front of goal, the goal machines. You talk of the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy, even Wayne Rooney, Louis Saha for United, the players that were sort of poachers in certain seasons and just like to score. Has Marcus Rashford got that in him? I have to question it. I don't know whether he's got the ability inside him and that desire to just go and score 20, 30 goals a season. Because you can say, okay, he's not been given a great run in the team, but he needs to give the manager a reason to give him a run in the team. I feel like this season has been very on and off. He's either had a good half a game or sort of looked good in parts, but he's not really put a proper full performance in. He looks knackered at the minute, so you're hoping this international break. I know he came on for England the other night and didn't really do anything there, but you're hoping he gets a bit of a break and then comes back and finds the form again, because he has got it in him. And I know a lot of people, especially on Twitter this past week, I mean, you shouldn't really look at Twitter to get the barometer of a player, but he's been criticised a lot, and people are saying he's not good enough for United. He's not a striker. He's not good enough for this club, and I disagree with that. I think he has got the ability. He's got the pace. He's got the link-up play, and he's shown in the past that he's got the finishing to score goals in this United side. And you just say, as a striker, he should be perfect for Ollie's counter-attacking football that he wants to seem to play. So something's just not quite right with Rashford. Is it his confidence? Quite possibly. I think what he needs is a goal. I think he needs a goal and a good win. I think if that comes against Liverpool, absolutely fantastic. But I think he's really, really short on confidence at the minute, and I think it just shows whenever he puts on that United shirt and walks onto the pitch.
Yeah, body language certainly isn't great. He will be in action maybe against Bulgaria when England take them on tomorrow. And apparently we're hearing today that he's on a shortlist for Barcelona alongside Harry
Barcelona?
Kane. Apparently so. But reports, reports.
Yeah.
We've heard this many, many times before. And in terms of what you say, I personally think he's definitely good enough for Manchester United. I think he's got bags and bags of ability. He can bring you something completely different in a game. But you're right, I think he needs to score a great goal. And do you know what? Sometimes it's fine margins. He has hit the post and bar so many times in his United career from distance, and you think, crikey, if a few of them went in, we might be talking about a different Marcus Rashford now. On the line is Mark Flanagan, our Northwest correspondent. Delighted to have you on, Mark. What's your take on Marcus?
Good evening, Ben. Good evening, Matt.
Evening, mate.
Listening with plenty of interest to what you were saying there. I've got a lot of thoughts on Rashford. I think the first thing to say is all footballers are confidence players. There isn't been a good footballer who wasn't full of confidence. And like you were saying there, Matt, the fine line between being really good and just slightly off it at this level is very fine indeed. Particularly if you're a striker, the amount of times players have gone, 8-9 games and then they've looked awful, and then, they get an awkward goal, one goes in off their backside and they're up and running and they can look a completely different player, and we've seen that so many times through history. But I think the main thing I'd say about Rashford really is that you would have thought that Ollie's arrival would be the making of him. And I don't really buy that thing that you said about him being sort of messed about in terms of position, because the way that modern teams set up, and if you think about Ronaldo's effect coming in from the wing and the amount of goals he scored for United, he really redefined what was possible in terms of, a wide man scoring that many goals and being that influential. And I guess if you look at Liverpool and you look at City, the amount of goals Salah scored from wide out. If Rashford had been managed properly and been built up and said, look, you can be our new Ronaldo, you can be our Mo Salah, you can be the guy who comes in and gets those couple of goals coming in off the wing, dribbling like you can, and all those great goals that you see him score, he quite often picks out wide and cuts inside. But like with many things at Manchester United, the way the play has been handled, I think, has a lot has been left to be desired, and I think a lot of that actually does come from Mourinho. I think you're right in terms of that rot set in under Jose.
So what do you think he needs, Mark, in order to make him that world-class player that we all thought when he came onto the scene in that 2015-16 season under Louis van Gaal? And people actually forget that him and Anthony Martial played a lot together towards the end of that season. The FA Cup final, they were both there together. And I think that's almost forgotten when people say, can Martial and Rashford play together?
Well, I mean, the other thing, just to sort of finish, I think a lot of United fans actually are hoping he's knackered, because if he isn't tired, and he does look like a footballer who's played a lot of football and just needs a rest and a mental break from it, from as much as anything. It was interesting that he tweeted this week about how he's let the fans down. He talked about being a Manchester United fan. And I think in the dressing room, he looks around and he thinks that he feels it more than a lot of the other players as a local player. And I think that's an important dynamic which quite a lot of people forget, that he's the sort of the link to the city and the fans and grown up as a United fan. So all that weighs heavily on him, I think. And I think he, being the main man and with Lukaku going, that kind of sits quite heavy on him. And I think it's just important for him to score 2 or 3 goals. I think if he gets off the mark and gets a couple in a couple of games, you'll see a completely different player. You talked about this interest allegedly from Barcelona. the guy has standing. He plays well for England, which I think is also a really interesting and illuminating insight into his makeup and the fact that he can get away from United and he feels a release. He feels the pressure is off slightly. You can see what he does in a white shirt. He's much more consistent in a white shirt than a red shirt. And I just think the other problem, obviously, he's got, like all the other front players at United, is who's going to supply the passes. And you quite often look at him during games, and he's looking around and thinking, why are we playing like this, guys? I'm making this run, I'm doing this, I'm trying to take up positions, but there's a lack of wavelength. The players don't seem to have that connection that the really good teams have, and all that obviously feeds into this situation where fans are going on Twitter having a go at him, but we know how good he can be, and it can. I think the main thing is it can change quickly.
Indeed, it can change quickly. Something that is going to change is our topic right now. In fact, it's not going to change right now. We're going to go to the ads because we've spoken about Marcus Rashford for a lot longer than we thought. But next, we are going to be discussing the news that apparently Manchester United have 4 major targets for this summer.
Love Sport.
Join former Premier League goalkeeper Richard Lee and Patrick Christys for Love Sport Breakfast every weekday morning from 6:30.
Carl and Shannon Green, England rugby fans who flew to Tokyo yesterday for their honeymoon.
And the news conference from World Rugby was at 4 o'clock, so it was as we were getting ready that the news came through.
That's what happened. Cole wasn't getting ready.
Love Sport Breakfast every weekday from 6:30. Listen on digital radio, on the app, and watch the show live on our YouTube channel.
Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
I'm Leslie from North Essex. I couldn't believe that after 5 minutes I'd saved over £900 on my energy bills. When my car insurance was then due for renewal, I went back to a spokesman said and reduced my premium by over £500. I thought that my home insurance was expensive. When I shopped around on a spokesman said, I saved a staggering £1,100. I've saved £2,500. I cannot believe it was that easy.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio. This is Love Sport.
You really start to feel the worst. Here's the corner. Rangers missed it. Oh, it's 2. It is Ronaldo, and Liverpool are extinguished. United are going to do the double over Liverpool. Ronaldo has struck again at long last. The second goal has come 2-0.
No, crikey. Sorry, mate. I'm really sorry to do this to you, Ben. This is the Manchester United fan show on Love Sport, and that was Cristiano Ronaldo scoring the second in a 3-0 victory over Liverpool, of course, this weekend's or next weekend's opponents, I should say, at Old Trafford. That was back in 2008. Of course, another memorable campaign for the Red Devils. I know I read out the team, the starting 11 at the top of the show for the previous clash in 2006. I'm going to do it again, just to kind of show the continuity at the time, and just a couple more names that are in. So Van der Sar again in goal, Wes Brown, Nemanja Vidic, Patrice Evra, Rio Ferdinand, Anderson, Giggs, Carrick, Scholes, Ronaldo, Rooney. Nani came off the bench and scored. Carlos Tevez came off the bench and created. It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah. Options all over the pitch, wasn't it, really, then?
It certainly was. And the reason that we've actually played that particular clip from Sky Sports at the time is that Cristiano Ronaldo was the goal scorer of that second goal. He scored his 700th career goal in Portugal's game with Luxembourg this weekend. And moreover, that was scored at the Estadio José Alvalade, which is Sporting Lisbon's ground, where United first saw Cristiano Ronaldo in that friendly in 2003. Obviously, I think it was Rio and John O'Shea and maybe everybody else that came in at half-time or at full-time and said, Gaffer, you've got to get that fella. Of course, United did then sign him. But the news has come out this week that apparently Sporting Lisbon are considering renaming their stadium the Cristiano Ronaldo Stadium or the CR7 Stadium. It might have something to do with branding for CR7, but I guess just on Ronaldo, just very quickly before we move on, he was a big summer signing in that 2003-04 season. Do you miss him?
Oh, I miss him so much. I mean, I thought he was still out on loan and we were getting him back sometime, weren't we? But yeah, dear me. I heard Rio Ferdinand talking about him actually, and when they signed him in that game against Sporting Lisbon, and he said that all the players were in the coach at the end of the game just waiting, thinking, hang on, what's going on here? We should be going now. And apparently Fergie was then in the board trying to get this guy to sign for United because he's just had an unbelievable game. I think he turned John O'Shea inside out, and they just had to sign him then, because otherwise I think Arsenal were interested as well.
Yeah.
So God's to think what would happen if he got into Arsenal, but yeah.
Yeah, good times and a wonderful relationship that you had with Manchester United, of course, for a fair few years after that. We're going to move straight on because we don't want to dwell on Cristiano right now and discuss the 4 summer signings that are apparently set to make their way to Old Trafford next summer. Now, Mark, I'm going to come to you on this. Mark Flanagan, our Northwest correspondent, is on the line. The 4 names that we're hearing at the moment, there are going to be many more, but the names that have been touted around are Kalidou Koulibaly, I should say, from Napoli. You've got Ben Chilwell and James Maddison from Leicester, and Moussa Dembele as well. The French striker, of course, he has spent some time at Celtic and Fulham, but is currently with Lyon. And Mario Mandzukic is a name that's being banded around too, but we think that he might come in January. What's your take, not just on the signings, but the fact this news has apparently been leaked, in inverted commas, this week?
Yeah, this is Manchester United going on the offensive for a change. Obviously, notoriously, the Glazers don't talk. Ed Woodward never speaks, and when he does, tends to put his foot in it. Google Bastian Schweinsteiger, and I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, what's happened is that a journalist has been obviously given the inside track, and this idea that Manchester United are going to make 4 signings in the next 2 summer transfer windows, and are 6 players short of challenging for major honours. The first part is a kind of, well, so what? You're making 4 signings this summer. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, why is that news? I mean, if you came out and said you were going to make 8, then that would make us all sit up and take notice. Interesting that they think that's sort of newsworthy and would satisfy United fans. I'm not sure that's really going to work. I think more interesting is the fact that they've kind of made this admission that they're half a team short of challenging for major honours. My understanding is that the Mandzukic deal is close. He's going to be the first one that's going to arrive in January, and Dembele is kind of top of the list moving forward. Obviously, he played, people might remember him first at Fulham and went to Celtic, did really well. He's had a really good first season in France, got 21 goals in his first season. And the other name that's been linked strongly is Rakitic as well, who's barely got a look in at Barcelona, who would tick so many boxes in terms of what they need in the centre of midfield. I think a big hurdle obviously is European football, and in terms of where Manchester United are going to be next season, whether it's Champions League or whether it's any kind of European football. But also, unfortunately for the club, when you've got such an unsettled situation at the top and your manager is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if you're Rakitic, you're thinking, well, do I want to play for Solskjaer? And if they're going to appoint Solskjaer, who are they going to appoint next? And what's happening? I'd rather get a Champions League final, Champions League football guarantee. So all of that is swirling around. Plus the Pogba situation. There's been a story that's come out of the Italian media that Juventus are very interested in him, and the possibility of Emre Can and Mandzukic coming in exchange for Pogba plus money. Juventus are stacked with central midfielders Khedira, Pjanic, Matuidi, Ramsey, Rabiot, and Can didn't even make the Champions League squad. Obviously, whether United fans would accept someone with such a recent link to Liverpool is obviously an enormous issue. But he's another guy who obviously would be an improvement on what they've got. And I think in United's position, can they afford to be that choosy if Chan was willing to come? So I think the Pogba dynamic is very important moving forward. But if they can get the 8 players over 2 years, it's a step forward, because they've talked about this 3-year plan to get back to, challenging for honours. Interesting as well that they're prepared to give Ollie, in inverted commas, that amount of time, but whether they do, obviously, is another matter.
So just to jump in here, do you think, obviously there's loads of names that keep being mentioned with United, do you think that there's still the appetite from players sort of across the continent and even in teams like Leicester at the minute to come to United at this current moment in time?
Not under the current structure and the way things are going at United in terms of the lost momentum. In terms of what sort of standard are we talking? Top level. No, they're going to struggle. Someone like Tielemans, who went to Leicester, who was a great example of probably someone United should have pushed for.
Yep.
That's just about, I think, where they're at in terms of getting guys at that 40 and 50 million mark who would be prepared to come, because United still do have that sheen of being Manchester United, and plus obviously the salary as well. But they've got to be sold a dream, and there's got to be something behind it. You can be part of the taking United back to the top, which is what obviously Liverpool had to do, and have done so brilliantly. And City did it in a slightly different way. But the Liverpool model is the way they've got to go down, and it's going to require some fantastically good scouting and some very good negotiations. And you just worry that without that sort of brilliant director of football that the other top clubs have got, whether they can pull it off.
It's hard to hear that though, isn't it, Mark? The Liverpool route is something that they've got to go down. Just on these particular signings as well that are being touted around, or players that United are being linked with, my concern here, even Rakitic, and I'm not part of the brigade that says, when players are past 30, it's a case of #legs gone, to do a Twitter hashtag there. But Ivan Rakitic will turn 32, I think it is, this season. Mario Mandzukic will turn 34 this season. Mandzukic and Rakitic both limited game time this season. They're going to come, if Mandzukic was to come in January, he's hardly played at all, if at all, I think, for Juve this season. Is this a case?
Yeah, he hasn't played a game.
Yeah,
Mandzukic.
He's not played a single game.
Yeah.
So are we looking at players who, and you mentioned the desire to play for United, the fear is here that they're looking at it and going, do you know what? This is my final payday. Yeah, I'll go to United.
Yeah.
I'll go there for 4 years. I'll sign a bumper contract and just eke out the rest of my playing days.
Yeah, it's a massive concern. And I don't think that, someone like Mandzukic would obviously sign a contract of that duration. He's a short-term, almost panic buy, you could label him as, because of the paucity of options up front with the way it's transpired with Rashford and Martial's, becoming injury prone, which is a big issue. Absolutely, that is a huge concern. And United's hierarchy, if nothing else, we will be aware that they don't want to be seen as this one big payday. But the problem is when you're kind of almost on a sinking ship and you are in that sort of panic mode, that's when bad decisions are made. And players are signed for all the wrong reasons, and it's a different cycle to get out of. So the good thing is that they are making the right noises in terms of not writing off this season, but thinking long term, so they don't get sucked in. Another problem that United had in their early days under Ed Woodward is that he'd have his head turned by powerful agents. You had the Mendes players coming in, and then the Manola players as well, and the influence that those kind of guys can have on someone. I don't want to say as impressionable as Ed Wood, but as sort of footballing naive as Ed Wood would. Now he's gone past that, and I think he can see the wood for the trees a little bit more now. But it's taking a long time, and United need to forget about this sort of short-term thing. And I think Mandzukic may be just the kind of exception because they are so short of options, and he does offer something different. I don't think Rakitic quite falls into that category, but obviously the likes of Dembele and Chilwell and obviously Maddison are much more of what they're trying to do, and they will be their main targets for the summer.
Indeed they will. And Ben, I mean, when you look at Chilwell and Maddison, two players that are currently at Leicester playing well, they are going to cost the earth. Koulibaly is a player that's renowned as one of the top centre-backs in Europe, if not the world. You know, many, many top clubs will be linked with him. What will make him want to sign for Manchester United for the reasons that I suppose we've already discussed? And on top of that, I know that it's great to announce it, so the fans will probably get maybe a bit excited, but part of me fears that this is a rod for his own back that Ed Woodward is building again here. And when we say the Fabulous Four, I know we're taking the mick, but we saw that in Jose Mourinho when he brought in, you know, Rayola's chunk, and he brought in Zlatan and Mkhitaryan, and Eric Bailly came in, and Victor Lindelof. You know, really, when you look at those four players, they've not worked out at all. Apart from Lindelof, which you could say is, you know, seems to be rated personally. I don't think he's the greatest centre-back. I don't think he's a first-choice centre-back. But apart from him, the others, I know Zlatan had a decent first season, but nothing happened in his second season. He's now with LA Galaxy. I know he was injured. And there's even calls now, I know there's various media reports and people will drum up any kind of story to suggest that perhaps we should get Zlatan back, for crying out loud.
I mean, it just really just smells of desperation, doesn't it? We're talking about Mandzukic, and you mentioned there that he's not had a game all season for Juve. Are we in a situation now where we're having to take other people's cast-offs? It doesn't sound confident as a United fan. And those four players, just to go back to it, I mean, Chilwell and Koulibaly, I mean, we're looking at our team at the minute, and our strongest part is defence. So why we're spending potentially 150 plus million on them two in defence, I don't know. Maddison, does he fit into the team right now? I'm not sure. Does he fit into our system? I'm not quite sure. Well, I mean, you're looking at Leicester. They're a team that have got it pretty much spot on. Tielemans was mentioned before, and I think he was a absolutely cracking player that we definitely should have gone in for. But there just needs to be some sort of structure in place and an idea of, right, this is the formation and the style we're going to play, and let's pick the players for it. I mean, I know it sounds very simple there, but surely it's got to be better than every week a different four names coming up. And it's like Woodward and everyone, they're just going, right, well, let's put our hand in a hat, pick a name out, and all right, we've got Mandzukic, he'll do for January, and then Emre Can. Emre Can. If he pulls on a United shirt anytime in the near future, I will be very disappointed.
That one does sound a bit Paul Ince-esque, to be honest, but in the other way round. And on that note, we're going to be looking ahead to the clash with Liverpool next.
Love sport. Are you being fobbed off by a company? Are they letting you down? And are your complaints falling on deaf ears? We can help you out. Come to aspokesmansaid.com and we will give you a voice and a platform to raise your complaints. As recommended in the Daily Telegraph, aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in?
No.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus a stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
Sturridge. Suarez. Onside. Free. He had to be part of it. They've come to Old Trafford and ripped up the enemy.
Crikey, it sends shivers down my spine, that does, Ben. Crikey, this is the Manchester United fan show on Love Sport, and that was Luis Suarez. I can't even say his name right. That's how much.
Just don't.
Crikey,
Just don't.
That was a certain Uruguayan scoring the third for Liverpool in their last victory at Old Trafford. That was in March 2014. I'm going to continue the trend by reading out the starting 11 on that day, Ben. Slightly different to the ones I've read out before. David De Gea in goal. Rafael, Patrice Evra, Phil Jones, Nemanja Vidic sent off in that game. Of course, it was Liverpool, standard. Juan Mata, Michael Carrick, Marouane Fellaini, Adnan Januzaj, Wayne Rooney and Robin van Persie.
I mean, that is a mix in itself, isn't it?
That's the real transitional period for Man United. Although, obviously, of those players mentioned there, De Gea, Phil Jones, Juan Mata, that's it from that starting lineup. On the bench, you had Anders Lindegaard, goalkeeper. Rio was on the bench. Ashley Young, Cleverley, Valencia, Kagawa and Welbeck. So that just shows the changing of the guard. And actually, a man who was subbed off in that game, Marouane Fellaini, on 76 minutes. He's piped up, hasn't he, this week, and sort of had a bit of a dig at United for the way that they hire and fire managers. I have no qualms with saying that personally I believe Marouane Fellaini was one of the worst players I've ever seen put on a Manchester United shirt. I felt like he stole a living with the amount of contracts he managed to get at the club. And just a couple of quotes that he said, the players who are left are players of experience. So the coach decided he didn't need them. That's the choice of the coach. He decided he didn't need Sanchez or Lukaku. That's his problem. He has his own players, so now he has to deal with that. He then went on to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He didn't have a conversation with me if I'll play or not. I signed a new contract for 2 years. One of the best managers in the world wanted me to stay, referring to Jose Mourinho, of course. After that, when a new manager comes in and I'm not part of his plans, it was time to leave, and I don't regret it at all. And Manchester United do not regret Marouane Fellaini leaving either, in my personal opinion. I know that some people have said he would be the perfect player to play for Man United, but in my opinion, not so much. And he, of course, earned a decent amount of money at Manchester United, as many other players have done. And before we get on to the Liverpool game, Mark, I just want to bring you in for this, because it has been revealed this week that United's wage bill is the highest ever reported by a Premier League club. £332 million a year, apparently, Man United are spending on players. This has been released by Swiss Ramble. They're a financial blogger and apparently respected so. But what do you take on this one?
Gosh, what are they spending it on?
Well, that's it. I mean, you look
Where's
at
it going?
Yeah, you look at David De Gea, don't you? Obviously, a massive new deal for him. Paul Pogba, a massive deal for him. Alexis Sanchez, of course. 7 months of that, he's not even playing for the club.
Well, it's not even just those guys. You think of Rojo's, I think it's 130,000 a week. Phil Jones, 120,000 a week. Who else has got a new? I'm just trying to think who else has got a new deal.
Is that
recently.
just the climate, though? Is that just the climate now, or United? Because when you look at United, are the only ones to release those figures, and when you look at the more recent figures from other clubs, Liverpool are on 264, City 260, Chelsea 244. It's way ahead of that, almost 100 million more.
Yeah, it is kind of a year ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
So theirs will be slightly different, although obviously Liverpool didn't buy anybody in the summer, so theirs won't be massively different. Chelsea's won't be a great deal different. City's won't be far off, about 295 million, I think, by now, because obviously they've sort of gradually added. So it is obviously considerably more, which makes the whole situation even worse, doesn't it? I mean, it's that horrendous feeling of the paying all this money and look how bad it's got. And we're talking about people spending 300 million buying 8 players in the next summer. They're a world away. I always go back to when Pep came and he finished third in that first season, and he bought 6 players: Danilo, Walker, Mendy, Laporte, Bernardo Silva, Edison, and he had that extraordinary core of players who'd won those 2 league titles, just to make that bridge that gap between themselves and Chelsea, and then obviously go ahead. You're talking 300 million to go from third to first. Well, what do United need to spend?
Absolutely. It does seem like an obscene amount of money, just like the £400 million deal that Chevrolet signed to be the club sponsor. We're hearing that apparently they want out. This could purely be media speculation, so we're not going to dwell too much on that. And we're actually going to look ahead to the game with Liverpool next Sunday, the Super Sunday on Sky Sports. Guys, I want to get your opinion on this. We've got about 4 minutes left of the show. How do you see it going? Ben, I'll come to you first.
Do you know what? On paper, you'd have to say we should get battered. And it feels terrible to say that going into the United-Liverpool game. I still have a little funny feeling, and I don't know where it's come from, and it's got no backing up whatsoever, that we might get a result next week, and we might even get a win. And I think it's them sort of results that over the past few years have sort of masked the bigger problem at United. When we've gone through a bad period with managers or sort of bad moments, we've got a victory in certain games, and it's, you look back to that PSG game at the end of last season, you think that was absolutely pivotal in Solskjaer getting the job. So I think there's certain games that we've had and results that have just sort of flicked a switch and made you think, oh, well, are we okay now? That have sort of like just masked this whole bigger problem at the club that clearly the people higher up on the board. I mean, Woodward's always the one that gets pointed at the finger, but you look at everyone around him and the Glazers, they don't seem to care what happens on the pitch. It seems to be that we're running the club as a business is fantastic, but as a football club, it's terrible. And I think it might just be one of them games where we do get a result and it sort of just keeps Solskjaer in a job, keeps things as it is, but in the long run, doesn't really do much.
This was, of course, the game that spelled the end of Jose Mourinho's tenure last year. That game was at Anfield, of course, a 3-1 victory for Liverpool. Mark, what's your take on the clash?
I can guarantee you the Glazers will be all over this game. I know you're exactly right in what you say. It's a business for them, but my goodness me, they will be taking a big interest in football at the moment. I actually think this is a great game for United. I think one of the big problems is when you get big clubs like this who have so many problems and so many things going wrong, the best thing they can do is play a game where they're not expected to win, because it just changes their dynamic in the changing room and the pressure is off them in so many respects. The only people who think they're going to win probably the parents of the players. Nobody else thinks they're going to win, and I don't think it's any coincidence that their best performances have come against Chelsea and Leicester when lots of people were writing them off. I also think, obviously, the way Liverpool only play one way, it's full throttle football. They'll just go right at United, which will give United a chance to catch them on the break. It's a perfect game for people like Rashford and Martial if he's on it, if he comes back, and obviously Dan James as well, to have a real go at their defence. My only issue really is if Liverpool get an early goal, you can just feel the confidence will seep from the stadium, it'll seep from the players. The confidence is so built. We've seen so many times when United concede their inability to sort of bounce back. But I think if United can get to half time and it's level, they've got a real fighting chance.
Yeah, indeed they have. And they've got an opportunity as well, I suppose. If they were to win and build a bit of momentum on this game, it's Norwich next, then it's Bournemouth, then it's Brighton, then it's Sheffield United and Aston Villa after that. So you'd like to think maybe, just maybe, there could be a run of results to come for Manchester United. We are out of time, gents. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. We've ended on a positive.
We have. Mark Flanagan, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Cheers, Matt.
This has been the Manchester United Fan Show, and we're going to end, like Ben said, on a positive. Last season, a United draw with Liverpool prevented them, really, from winning the Premier League. 30 years ago, in 1989, on New Year's Day, a 3-1 victory over title-chasing Liverpool ended up being a huge, huge result for United, as Liverpool did not win the First Division title. They lost out to Arsenal on the final day of the season. And here, in that 1st of January game, is what happened with that third goal from a certain Russell Beardsmore.
Robbins tries to get in, and Beardsmore! 3-1! You can't believe it now.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Being your mate's